We run co-branded sweepstakes, which means we bring groups of brands together who share common audiences, and we will pull together a package of pricing from each of the products, put together this really valuable experience and package, and then all of the brands promote that giveaway to their audience. And for people to enter, they'll always enter with their email address. With that, all of the brands grow because they're able to cross-pollinate. When you're doing a co-branded sweepstakes, what you're doing is you're actually collaborating with other businesses who've already taken the time or spent the money to amass an audience, and you're essentially dipping into that audience. Because that is what matters. People matter, and their lives matter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Digital Revolution Podcast. I'm your host, Eli Adams. Today's episode is brought to you by fireusmarketing.com, where SEO solutions pave the way to digital excellence. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode where we are joined by Stacie Proctor. Stacie is the founder and CEO of Gathered, a marketing agency working with socially conscious brands and America's largest digital publishing companies as a strategic partner in growth. In the last 4 years, she has developed a network of over 17,000 brands, collaborated with 800 plus brands, generated campaigns with 170 million plus impressions, acquired 1.7 million email subscribers, and has driven multi-channel growth across social media, website, and print for hundreds of brands. She is a wife, a mama, and a recent recipient of the 2024 Utah Business 40 Under 40 Award, and currently serves as Miss Vineyard here in Utah. With her personal mission, It Takes a Village, restoring community and connection through collaboration, Stacie is leading collaborative efforts in families, religion, politics, and business to cultivate greater well-being in Utah and the nation. Welcome to the show, Stacie.
Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, I'm real excited to have you here. So you and I met at your wedding, right? Is that the first time that we met?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So your husband and I worked together a long time ago at an agency, and we even had like a little singing thing going on around Christmas for a little while. I think that was probably even before he met you, and then I met you at your wedding, and I love your husband to death, and just such a good guy. So it's been how long you been married now?
Almost 11 years.
Almost 11 years. So congratulations on that. So yeah.
Thank you.
So we've known each other a little bit.
Yeah, we're similar in that I also love Andy.
Yeah. Yeah. He is one of the most
great guy.
Humble guys. And what I love the most about him is that he's not afraid to try something new. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And once you're a little bit older, like you don't try new things. Like he picked up the cello, right? Just like a couple of years ago.
Yep. And he inspired our entire family. I think we had someone pick up a flute. I picked up the guitar. Yeah. Someone picked up the piano, all because he was willing to be a beginner again as an adult.
Yeah. So anybody out there who's a little bit older, if you want to try something new, just do it. Andy does it and it works, and he's great at it. So just do it.
Yep. Remember, you've got to play through the awkward. That was the thing. That was our deal. I was like, Andy, this can be as scratchy and ugly as it needs to be, because that is just a part of the process of learning something new. So just know that I'm going to celebrate the scratches with you. And that was the little theme for his recital, was play through the awkward.
That's awesome. Yeah, what a good guy. I really like Andy. So let's dig into this. Let's learn a little bit more about Stacie. There's a lot that I want to go over. I know that you just recently won the 40 Under 40, and we're recognizing that. So I want to dig into that. I want to talk about your current business and everything. But let's kind of start in the beginning. Like, where'd you grow up? What'd you want to be when you grew up? Like, tell us the story of Stacie.
Sure. Okay. I love the story of Stacie, just because I think it's really fun. And if anything, my hope is that anyone who hears my story will realize, if this girl can do it, I can do it. So I grew up in a pretty big amount of change going on in my life. So my parents divorced when I was about 18 months old, and then they remarried multiple times. We moved a lot. I changed schools 16 times by 10th grade, with homes in between that, coast to coast. So I just experienced a lot of change. We were also very poor. And so, on the one hand, there were a lot of challenges that came with that. But on the other hand, I learned a couple of really important lessons. So one is that no matter where we went, we always had a community that took us in,
Mm.
and we always had a place to live. We always had food to eat, and we always had friends. And to me, that just showed me people are by and large really good in the world.
Yeah.
So that was a really valuable lesson. The other thing is I've learned to adapt really quickly. So sometimes with all of those moves, I would change schools 3 or even 4 times in a single year and often had to reintegrate and kind of reinvent
Mhm.
really, really quickly. So I can honestly look back and say it was a little bit crazy, but I think it was perfect for me.
Mm.
With that, one of the stories I thought would be fun to share was at one point, my mom, sister, and I all lived together in this little tiny one-bedroom apartment. And I was a budding teenager, and so of course I wanted my own space and my own thing. And the only other space that there was this tiny hot water heater closet. But I was like, that is going to be my space, my room.
Wow.
All there was room for in there was a tiny little mattress,
Mhm.
and so I had my little mattress on the floor, but the problem was I was afraid of the dark. So and there were no windows, in that room, so there was, like, a 3-second gap from, like, closing the door, turning off the light, to, like, jumping in my bed. So of course we're very, very poor, didn't have a lot, to work with. But I think I pulled together some thumbtacks and some string and this really cool keychain that I had. And I rigged up this system so that I could get in bed and then pull a knob and turn off the light, pull a knob and turn on the light. And called it the thingamabobber.
Yeah. You're not gonna
Uh,
believe this, but I did that same thing growing up.
did you?
Yeah.
We are
Yeah,
twinsies.
I
Yeah.
was I was
Trips
afraid
up.
of the dark, and so I went out in the barn and I found some pulleys and I strung it up, and we had the chain down the middle,
Hmm.
and so it was easy to, like, pull it and then pull it again, right? It wasn't up or down, it was just one movement for to do both, and,
I love it.
yeah, that's great. So twinsies.
Yep, what's that quote? It's something like necessity is the mother of innovation.
Yeah,
And I think so, sometimes we're really bothered by the limitations or the restrictions that we have, but that can also propel us to get more creative and come up
absolutely.
with solutions.
Yeah.
Another really fun story that I feel like helped to shape and kind of as a reflection of who I am is in 5th grade, I was, elected as the student body president,
Mhm.
and we had a decent playground, but it could have been better, and so my friends and I approached the school and said, "Hey, what does it take to get a new playground?" And they said, "Oh, we're so sorry, that's really expensive. It's not in the budget right now." Well, my mom and dad were both entrepreneurial.
Mhm.
They had not had a lot of success, but I was exposed to that way of thinking and trying and doing. And my mom, in particular, had had an educational supplies store. And so I thought, what if we start a school store? And thankfully, the school was really supportive of our kind of young entrepreneur minds
Hmm.
and let us direct that project. And I said, okay, we need really cool stickers. We need really cool erasers and pencil sharpeners and colorful paper and like all these different things that students would love. And we had parents join in to come help us. And within a couple of months, we'd raised enough money to buy a new playground,
Wow.
had that playground installed, and the playground is still standing there at the school
No
today.
way. That's such a
Yeah.
cool story and innovative, especially for 5th grade. Like, that's not
Yeah.
something that you see very often is 5th graders going and making their own money to build their own playground.
Thanks. Well, and I think for me too, one of the lessons there was that those kinds of projects, you can't do it alone.
Mhm.
Like, especially as a 5th grader, you can't do that kind of thing alone. You really do need people around you who are willing to jump in and just add their part and participate. So that was a really fun collaborative experience early on.
And you didn't take no for an answer either, right? The
No.
first time around, they said no, and you're like, "Well, let's figure this out." So very creative to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's how can we do this? So I know that you had asked, I think at one point you had asked me maybe in another conversation, what did I want to be when I grew up?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I've always had an entrepreneurial streak, but I didn't think that I would be a business owner
Mhm.
necessarily. I in high school I did a lot with speech and drama and was awarded the Speech and Drama Sterling Scholar Award and
Mhm.
got some scholarships from that. And so quite honestly, I thought I'd be on Broadway, which is not too far off from my day-to-day as a toddler mom.
Yeah.
I can be found every morning telling stories, singing songs, performing for
Yeah.
my little guy.
So you wanted to be in Broadway. At what point did you know you wanted to do something like that?
I was always interested in creative outlets.
Mhm.
So whether it was like just oh, you know what? When I remember in first grade, I would color pictures and write people's names in bubble letters
Mhm.
because that was a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And sell it for like five to 15 cents. I'd sell really cool
No way.
names and things like that. So I always was drawn to really artistic things, things where you get to play
Mhm.
together with people and create inspiring and transformative
Mhm.
experiences.
So you moved around quite a bit when you were younger. Did that settle down once you were in high school, or were you still bouncing around from one high school to another?
So partway through high school, it started to settle down.
Mhm.
I yeah, I went to one high school for the last 3 years of school, and that's really where kind of that music and
Mhm.
theater really took root, and which I'm grateful for. I even had a little period of time before that where I had been homeschooled for a little while. But yeah, that was really more of a grounding and kind of directive point. The challenge for me at that point, though, was that I I really didn't have a lot of support going into college, and so while I did really really well in school, all growing up, almost always a straight A student,
Mhm.
I struggled in college, and I took on, number 1, way too many classes. I started my day super early and, just would stay up late, though, with friends because I was also this social butterfly, and so I really wasn't prepared for the college experience and overloaded myself completely, and then when I was struggling, I didn't know where to turn for help.
Mhm.
And so I ended up flunking out basically.
Mm.
My first semester, I think I was started struggling and got some poor grades, and then the second semester, I just stopped going to classes and failed and went on an academic probation,
Yeah.
and I felt like a complete failure and just thought, I don't know what I wanna do with my life because at that point, I had kind of realized, I don't know if being on Broadway is the dream for
Mhm.
me, really, but I don't know what my dream is, and so I thought, "You know what? I'm sinking faster than I can dig out here," and of course, my family didn't have financial support to offer, and there wasn't really strong connection at that point for support. I had actually moved out of the house early in as a teenager. There was just a lot of independence,
Mhm.
but also I wasn't prepared for the world on my own. So I decided I would take a break and just pause school. I would start working just to earn a little bit of money, figure out how to kind of set myself up. But I didn't know how to be an adult.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about money. I think I struggled to pay my bills on time and even to just pay them. I remember reaching out to my grandma so many times, asking her, for help, just if she would be able to help, and which she always so graciously did.
Mhm.
And yeah, it took some time for me to figure those things out. But I did.
Mhm. Did you end up going and getting a job while you were taking a break and then just, like, working through life?
Yeah, I did end up taking a kind of a random job. I think I did some hostessing at a restaurant,
Mhm.
and I decided I wanted to go to massage therapy school
Mm.
because I thought, "Oh, that's a skill that I can utilize and something where I can make more money in less hours to be able to go back to school."
Mhm.
So I was doing a massage therapy program, and I ended up switching and becoming a full-time live-in nanny
Oh,
because in
wow.
that way, I could have a place to live, I could have some income, I could go to school at night.
Mhm.
So I did that for a year, and which was really great. It
Mhm.
gave me a good foundation. And once I graduated from massage therapy school, I I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I could go work on a cruise ship, I could go work in a spa. I had the
Mhm.
possibility of working with Real Salt Lake as a sports massage therapist, which
Mhm.
sounded really cool. But I just it was that overwhelmed by decision
Yeah.
of like, if I could do anything, what do I want to do? I don't even know. And so I decided I'll just start with taking on some of my own private clients. So that was one of my first official businesses as
Yeah.
an adult.
Mm-hmm.
I had this private practice. I would go visit people. And I also did some like part-time modeling on the side and a few different things. And it was the convergence of those two things that really set me up for the next chapter of my life. So I was a spokesmodel for a resort in Nevada and had gone down to do some work. And while I was there, had a conversation with the owner and COO and director of marketing in the car while we were driving
Mm-hmm.
between events. And they were talking about starting a new spa at this resort. And this is one of the, I don't know, I can say this is a skill that has helped me a lot of times in throughout my professional journey.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not afraid to just share ideas and to like titles don't really scare me.
Yeah.
So I just engage and share ideas. And so in the car, I just shared, oh, you know, this sounds really interesting. Have you considered this? Have you thought about the entire journey and how you can create this cohesive experience? And what do you think about this and that? By the end of the car ride, the owner said, "What do you think about coming down and heading up our spa initiative?"
Hmm.
Which now I look at and I think, wow, like that's kind of crazy that
Yeah.
that was given. Um, and so, of course, I had to think about it. They prepared an offer and everything. But I ended up accepting that and went down and helped build things from the ground up of developing treatment protocols and hiring the therapists and deciding what are the products that we're carrying, and was fortunate to have a really big budget to work with
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of flexibility and freedom to pull those things together.
Mm-hmm.
So dove in with that experience. I think I was what, probably 21,
Mm. Yeah.
22, and working with this, this resort and this massive budget. But really, it was hard. It was kind of like, oh, this is what happens when you don't know where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
You just end up, your ship goes wherever the tide takes you or the wind blows you. And this may or may not be in alignment with what you actually want.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was working really long hours and, all alone in this city in Nevada where I didn't really have
Yeah.
connections. And I felt more alone than ever and just realized, they had brought me down starting with a 6-month contract. And then if they wanted to continue and I wanted to continue, we would. And so as we got closer to that 6-month mark, I decided, you know what, this
Mm-hmm.
isn't the right fit. Left that, but you know, that had given me tons of valuable experience and really set me up for a lot of future experiences I would have.
I feel like a lot of people have to go through some kind of phase like that in their 20s to really appreciate things later on, right? The extra hours. Like I managed retail management and I actually went to Grand Forks, North Dakota, very similar to you going out of state. I didn't have anybody. It was cold. I was working like 80 hours a week during Christmas. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But coming back, it gave me a bigger appreciation for regular work hours, for one, for family, because I didn't
Mhm.
have family for a whole year, for a
Yeah.
lot of things. And I think a lot of kids, if you're in your 20s and you haven't had that experience yet of like getting away from the norm and really stretching
Mhm.
yourself, I'd encourage you to do that if you're in that position. So good for you
Yeah.
for doing that. And I bet you some of those lessons have lived forever with you, right? Like you've been
Oh,
able to
yeah.
take the stuff you learned from there and turn it into who you are today.
Yeah. And I would say that has been maybe my entrepreneurial superpower is there's never a wasted experience. There truly, it's so cliche, but there's no such thing as a failure in my mind because with every single experience, there's something to learn and some tool that I'm able to add to my tool belt that then makes me that much more effective
Hmm.
in whatever I'm doing next.
Yeah. So okay, so from there,
Mhm.
where did your career path go, and how does it tie into when you actually started your company?
So from there, I ended up moving back to Utah, which is where I had ended high school, had a little bit more family in Utah. And I decided that I wanted to start my own
Hmm.
business for real, but I didn't want to do massage. I kind of burn out from that. So I started going to some local workshops just to learn, what was going on in that space, who the coaches were, what the programs were. because I knew that I probably wouldn't get that from in the way that I wanted from a bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I got really, really lucky. I'll tell you that because there are a lot of programs and mentors that have fluffy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
lots of hype, and very little tactical application.
Yeah.
I was very lucky in that I found a coach who her whole thing was essentially the E-Myth Revisited
Mm-hmm.
in a plan. So if you haven't read that, it's just very systems oriented, process oriented. You're working on the machine, not in the machine.
Yeah.
Um, so kind of her leadership and the things that I learned from her as a mentor have been the foundation for me as a business owner now across multiple businesses. I've owned an online clothing store, I've owned an online supplements business, I own a marketing agency, and a lot of the things that I learned have been the foundation for every single one of those
Mm-hmm.
businesses.
That's crazy.
Um,
So you found a coach and you didn't actually go
mhm.
back to corporate America. Then you started
I didn't at that time.
okay.
Yep.
So you started another business.
Yep. So I dove in within, I think, starting the program within 30 days. I had my first workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So I had experience in the world of pageantry growing up. And I loved certain things about it, and I really didn't like certain things about it. And so I wanted to try to extract the best parts of that and put it together into a leadership development program for
Hmm.
teenage girls.
Cool.
So that was the plan. And with that, I was going to have mother-daughter workshops and ultimately kind of a pageant experience,
Yeah.
but where it was much more inclusive and it was more of a highlighting and a celebration of the achievements of each
Mm-hmm.
girl versus a competition. So with that, hosted my first workshop. I think we had around 60 attendees with 12 sponsors. We had live music and performance, and we had a bunch of people sign up for our first mother daughter workshop. So I was right out of the gate just going for
Yeah.
it. And that's one of the things I think that, also kind of makes me successful is the start before you're ready, dive in kind of head first.
Mm-hmm.
And that has helped a lot. So started that. And I had also just recently gotten married. So I don't know
Mm.
if you knew this, Eli, but before Andy and I met, we both had been
Mm-hmm.
married. And so I was in that marriage and things started to not be going so well.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, that can oftentimes really impact business,
Yeah.
right? Because the foundation is the family and is the home life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to pause the development of my own business. But an interesting thing had happened, which was I would share my experience and the growth and the things that I'd been learning at the different workshops and retreats that my coach would host. And whenever I would share my story, she would have the vast majority, if not all people, sign up for her program just in hearing the story. So she approached me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing sales for me?"
Hmm.
And I thought, "Sales? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No." And she was very, I don't know, gentle with me and talk to me a little bit more and
Mm-hmm.
explain certain things. And she's like, "You're already doing this, just sharing your story, just because you are really curious about people
Mm-hmm.
and about their businesses and you have ideas to share and you're collaborative." She's like, "I think you'd be great at sales." So
Mm-hmm.
dove into that, had some experience doing sales. Um, Ended up becoming her director of sales, leading a
Nice.
sales team with really fantastic numbers. And that is an extremely valuable skill that has benefited me again across all businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so dove in with her. And with that too, the other really unique thing that afforded me was I had the opportunity to consult with over 100 small to medium sized businesses. And it was all different kinds of businesses,
Mm-hmm.
some, you know, digital e-commerce, some more of the mom and pop local shop. And so I got to, just see the guts of a lot of these different businesses and see what was great and working and what wasn't, and seeing
Mm-hmm.
a lot of burnout, and helping to kind of identify what are some of the gaps that need to be filled here. and really reinvigorating people's energy
Yeah.
around their business and reinstilling hope in the idea that they initially had. So that was really powerful, really meaningful. But again, I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do forever.
Hmm.
So did that for I don't even remember how long, over a year at least. It was until Andy and I met
Hmm.
and were married. We decided to go on our month-long honeymoon, and I paused my sales at that point. And he was running an SEO business at that time,
Hmm.
and we decided, you know what, this is where our paths converge, and we can start to do some things together.
Yeah.
So so yeah, that was a big part of my development as well.
Hmm. That's such a good story, and I think that the authenticity that comes from your story is probably really what sold a lot of those people when you were telling your story too, right?
Thanks.
Too many people get up there and they try to sell something versus like here's what it means to me. Here's my story, and they can empathize with that, especially when you're vulnerable and you're like, here's where I struggled, here's where I did well. I think a lot of people take that and they're like, I can relate to that, which is a
Yeah.
big part of this podcast. I want people to look at this and say, wow, if she can do this, I can do this. And so I appreciate you being a little bit vulnerable and going through that. Let's dive into what you're currently doing now. So what excites you? What wakes you up in the morning and gets you going?
Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm the founder and CEO of Gathered, a digital marketing agency. We specialize in co-branded sweepstakes.
Hmm.
So it's marketing, as you know, is very, very broad. This is one thing, and we are really good at it. It's just a very niche thing. So what excites me, I guess too, I'll mention I've been doing this. I'm in my 5th year now with
Hmm.
Gathered, and we have been able to work with some really, really incredible brands. We've been in the black since day one, which is also
Yeah.
pretty phenomenal. I would attribute a lot of that again to my early upbringing of you work with what you have
Hmm.
and you build from there. So the things that excite me and wake me up in the morning, relationships is number one.
Okay.
So I absolutely love my team. It's really important to me to create a really great internal business
Hmm.
just as much as it is to create a really great external business. So
Hmm.
I'm thinking a lot about just the personal lives and the professional development of the people on my team.
Hmm.
And how at the end of the day do we build a human-centered business? Because that is what matters. People matter and their
Yeah.
lives matter. So we do things really differently. It's very much number one, I've built the business very much as a lifestyle business,
Hmm.
meaning I'm a toddler mom. I'm really involved in the community and have a lot of other activities and interests. And,
Yeah.
so I work 15 to 20 hours per week and I do that by choice.
Hmm.
And the business is successful. It could obviously be a lot bigger than it is,
Hmm.
but I've chosen to keep it that level because for me, these other facets of my life are so important.
Yeah.
So I've built it to really support that, and I bring that to the people that I work with as well. I say, how do we really shape the business to support you as an individual and your goals? And I do think that weaving that in and giving people more of that mindset of this business is an opportunity to grow and
Hmm.
develop you and support you. There's a high amount of loyalty that comes from that.
Yeah.
And you also get really good work that comes from that.
That's huge. That's huge for leadership too. I managed some pretty big teams and we used to do I don't remember what we called them officially, but they were like intro interviews. So you were hired and then, day one you sat down with me or your direct boss and we talked about what do you do outside of work and how can we support that? Because if you're happy outside of work, you're happy inside of work, you're well-rounded and it does help with that loyalty. So that's awesome that you do that with your company.
Thank you. Yeah, and one of the things is I'm all about questioning norms,
Mhm.
and there are no sacred cows in terms of just because 40 hours is the traditional, kind of structure for work. Yes, it is supported by insurance and other
Yeah.
things like that for a lot of corporations. But is that really what's best? And is that what really makes sense for this person, this individual and their life?
Mhm.
And I honestly believe that for the vast majority of us, 40 hours doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
It's it depends on the work. I think with the world that we live in, there's so much more that we can automate, so much more so many more tools that can make the lift easier. So for me, I start with results. We build results-oriented projects, and we have a results-oriented business. The compensation is results-oriented for my team. And with that, there is a ton of autonomy
Mhm.
and flexibility. So early on, we did have a physical location. It was a co-working space that people who were in the state of Utah could come to and work from. And I think that was really great initially for community building. We did yoga
Mm.
every single day as a team.
Yeah.
We also had weekly dance parties. We just would do things that as people would just
Yeah.
create friendships and help us to have a good time with the work that we're doing. So we had that initially, and then COVID, right?
Yeah.
And so many businesses and so many things had to change with that. And so we went fully remote. And that's ended up being fine. We've
Yeah.
adapted to that really well. And what is great about that is we have team members who've moved states, who've moved countries even. And their work for them is able just to continue as is. They're
Yeah.
able to continue with their role and their relationships with clients. If people go on trips, which a lot of our team members travel quite a bit.
Mhm.
We have someone going to a Taylor Swift concert in Australia this weekend, and
Nice.
we just people take time off for birthdays or family activities, and the work itself really, can be done in that way. That said, we have very, very clear processes so that
Mhm.
we can create results again and again and again. And we have timelines that we're working with, and we have parameters. But again, that's the beauty sometimes of those limitations or parameters is once those are clear and if those are set, there's a whole lot of flexibility in the in between there.
Mhm.
Just that's something that excites me is thinking about how can my team and I play today? And
Mhm.
how can I support my team members? And very similarly with my clients, I'm heavily involved, probably more so than a lot of owners
Mhm.
of companies, but involved in key moments with our clients. In kicking off, number one, like when they can come on as a client, and then kicking off and following up from campaigns that we run with them.
Yeah.
I like to be there and have that relationship with them. And so getting to know them, getting to know their business, and then on a personal level, even our team took a client trip to New York last fall, and it's something that I hope that we do every year. Is wherever we have kind of a group of
Mhm.
clients and strategic partners. But we went and we just had lunch and dinner, and it wasn't a sales trip. It wasn't anything other than just really spending time with the people that we're serving and that
Yeah.
we work with and creating those connections with them.
How cool. I hope a lot of business owners and leaders are listening to this because the way that you run your company is the way that people should lead teams and run their companies.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's very cool. Okay, let's dive into your some tactics. You're in a very niche space on how you help people out. So what does it mean to do sweepstakes?
Okay, so starting with sweepstakes. So we run co-branded sweepstakes, which means we bring groups of brands together who share common audiences, and we will pull together a package of pricing, from each of the products. So a lot of times they have really complementary products and
Mm-hmm.
services. Put together this really valuable um, experience and package, and then all of the brands will promote that giveaway to their audience. And for people to enter, they'll always enter with their email address, their first name and email address. And then we do other things to optimize the campaign for social growth, SMS acquisition, website traffic, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
We optimize the crap out of it. But then with that, all of the brands grow
Yeah.
because they're able to cross pollinate. So that's what a co-branded sweepstakes is. Why it's so phenomenal is because in my time that I consulted with, over 100 businesses,
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, the real challenge was not in the product itself. I mean, sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But many times not the product or service, many times not in pricing, not in education. It was in distribution.
Okay.
They just couldn't get it in front of enough of the right people
Mhm.
soon enough to where the business could sustain itself
Right.
and then from there could grow. And so that distribution, there's a saying that we use, in our business as we're explaining things, and it's paid growth is expensive, organic growth is slow, sweepstakes are your marketing accelerator.
Mm.
And the reason why is because it typically takes so long to organically build an audience. Or if you are trying to do it through paid, it can oftentimes take quite a bit of money to build up that audience.
Mhm.
And so most small businesses don't have the luxury of either of those things,
Yeah.
time or the money. And
Mhm.
so with this, sweepstakes is this really unique thing. I actually discovered it because we skipped a lot, but I was the global marketing director for a travel company.
Okay.
And the company grew tremendously over the course of about 4 years, a multi-million-dollar company.
Mhm.
And when I came into it had already done that growth. So that wasn't because of me.
Mhm.
It had already achieved that, but it was kind of actually like slowing down, and we were trying to figure out what's going on here. So that
Mhm.
was part of my job, was coming in and figuring out what's going on here. Long story short, there was this little strategy called sweepstakes that the business had utilized early on to amass a really large qualified list.
Mhm.
And from there, they'd been able to create conversions from that list. And that is what drove the growth. And they just did sweepstakes on repeat to build and build. And so understanding that, really optimizing that process. When I left and went out on my own, I had so many friends who are business owners or in marketing positions who said, "How do you do this? Like,
Mhm.
what is this? How do you do this? And would you do this for me?" That I said, "I think there's a real opportunity here to start a business."
Yeah.
So that was kind of the birth of Gathered. But with that, why it's so powerful is because, again, it takes so much time and resource to build that audience. But when you're doing a co-branded sweepstakes, what you're doing is you're actually collaborating with other businesses who've already taken the time or spent the money to amass an audience, and you're essentially dipping in to that audience.
Okay.
And it's not taking anything from them, because when they're a part of this campaign, they are also growing.
Mhm.
So that's the beautiful thing, is everyone grows. And especially when you do have complementary products, and you're serving an audience who shares similar values, and you're working with certain demographics that line up, you the individuals who enter the sweepstakes are typically delighted to discover the other brands who are participating in
Yeah.
the giveaway, because they already like those types of products and services. So you can save a lot of time and you can save a lot of money when you collaborate and you are dipping into existing pools that have been created for you.
So for my own educational purposes, let me see if I understand correctly what's happening. So if I'm a business owner and I'm like, "Hey, I wanna do a sweepstakes." What this means is that I have a product, that I'm willing to give away for free.
Mhm.
And I'm working with another company who has a product that's not in competition. They're willing to do the same
Yes.
thing, and you have multiple companies who come together and say, "We'll give this whole thing for free,"
Mhm.
and then you promote it as this sweepstakes, and you grow your email list, like you cross pollinate those email lists and
Mhm.
social media, and then the sweepstakes happen, and you give that free stuff. But by that point, you've gathered this whole list of new people that you can then drip campaign and social media and whatever else you want to do
Got it.
to convert. Is that correct?
You've got it. And the really cool thing is that you can personally have no audience whatsoever. And if you are the one organizing a great sweepstakes,
Mhm.
or you come to an agency who organizes it for you, you can go from 0 to 15,000 plus in a single campaign. So our average campaign acquires 15,000 plus new emails per campaign. We've
Wow.
gone upwards to 40,000 emails in a single campaign. For more niche campaigns, like a low yield
Mhm.
campaign, you're still going to see typically 8 to 10,000 new entries per campaign.
That's awesome.
And there's an art and a science to it, which I love that part.
Yeah.
I love that the marriage of those two things. Um, but the other really great thing is, and some tactical advice I would say is you get to triple dip, which is basically
Mhm.
you're putting your resources, which when you're wearing a ton of hats, right, as a business owner, especially early on, you don't have time to do all the things, and you don't have time to be an expert in all of the things.
Yeah.
And you might not have budget to apply to all of these things that you need to do to run your business. And so sweepstakes is this really interesting little thing where you can grow. Again, you talked about, and with some of the stats I had shared with you, impressions, email list growth. I didn't even mention SMS in that,
Mhm.
but social media growth. You can drive app downloads, you can drive podcast subscribers, you can drive all kinds of things from a single campaign.
Mm.
And again, the power behind that campaign is really in your partners promoting the giveaway to their audience, and they're driving that growth to you.
Yeah.
So it's one thing that you can do that takes, a certain amount of time and a certain amount of resource that can create growth in all these different channels.
So do you help set that up? So you said I can be, brand new, not have anybody. So that means I don't have email campaigns, SMS campaigns, any of that set up. So does your company help me do the sweepstakes, but then also help with the discovering the drip campaigns and everything else to sell the product later? Is that what you guys specialize in as well?
So we've started with just the acquisition piece.
Okay.
And then we had a couple of clients who specifically requested those additional services.
Hmm.
And so we built out, the capability to support them with that nurture side. So we did what, for example, I have two brands who have really similar numbers, but one of them, we were able to help them go from, they were about 6,000 email lists, 6,000 email subscribers to over 150,000 subscribers in about 10 months.
Hmm.
And we were able to take them from about $400 in monthly revenue through email to over $15,000 a month in revenue from email. And then the beautiful thing was, we decreased the sweepstakes budget, but they had amassed that, and so they were able to kind of keep that churning and growing. So yeah, we offered that. We don't push that or really
Hmm.
advertise that, focus on that. Um, the majority of our clients at this point are they're a little bit larger in size, so they
Yeah.
oftentimes have that capability in-house.
Hmm.
Um, I will say though, with that, going out and building a massive email list without having the ability to nurture and
Hmm.
convert is a really expensive endeavor. And you don't want to do that. So you do need to, whether you do it yourself, you hire someone to do it for you, or, yeah, you have that capability in house. You need to make sure that you have a basic welcome sequence, that you've got a strategy for nurture
Hmm.
to convert.
Okay, very cool. Okay, so you guys focus on the acquisition for the most part. You have, it sounds like, in the past helped with the nurture part, but there are other companies out there also that can then help with that. But
Yes.
okay, so let's say that I'm a business owner and I want to grow my list and my audience, but maybe I don't have enough money to hire an agency or hire somebody in house. What are some tactics that you have to help me get started to grow my email list and grow my audience? Um, so that I can get to a point where I can come and hire a company like you to help explode after.
So we created an online course
Okay.
where it's telling you how to do it yourself. The funny thing about the course, though, is it's extremely affordable, which is great. And if I would say, if you have the time and the stomach to put together a high performance sweepstakes, it's going to give you the best bang for your buck, and you can do it over and over and over. But more often than not, when I've presented the course on webinars, it ends up driving more people to the fully managed, because they see, oh, there's a lot that goes into this, from the
Yeah.
legal side, the creative side, the outreach to brands, and the negotiations and the vetting of who is the right partner for this. How do we actually get a high yield campaign with a high number of committed entries
Hmm.
from partners, and putting the package together? So if you have kind of the time and the stomach for that, um, and don't have the budget, that can be great. I would say if you were okay to go a little bit slower,
Mm-hmm.
which might be fine. You could take the basic principle or ideas that we're talking about with sweepstakes and apply it. I would just say typically people will do this for social growth
Mm-hmm.
only. Follow. We'll all get together. We'll give something away and follow everybody on social media.
Yeah.
I would just say that can be, if you want to grow social, great, but you always run the risk of needing to fight through the algorithm and changes that happen, and
Right.
you don't own your list. So I would recommend capture email. That and if SMS is your special sauce,
Mm-hmm.
like capture SMS. But that's going to give you that direct line of communication. And again, just apply the basic principle of find other brands who have complementary products and services, who already have the audience that you're wanting. And again, even if you're the small person in that, if you get some other brands who are really well suited to each other and they're a little bit bigger and you're willing to put in the work to organize the campaign,
Mm-hmm.
you can get some really great benefit from that.
I think it's interesting how email is like one of the oldest ways to market, and it's still like the safest almost, right? Like I've talked in other podcasts how people don't want to put their eggs all in one basket. So, 15 years ago, SEO was really big. It was really easy to like rank number one. Like I had clients that I would bring on, and within like 3 weeks, I had every keyword ranking number one. And then algorithms come out and they change, and what we were doing didn't work anymore, and all of my eggs were in that Google basket. Then Facebook comes out, and everybody puts their eggs in that Facebook basket, and then Facebook
Yeah.
algorithm change. And so when you're saying people are coming in there, they're growing their social following, that's fine, but a lot of times with these algorithms, a lot of times like business pages aren't prioritized.
Mhm.
And when you do a social post, a lot of times it's a small percentage of your audience that's going to see it. But where you have this email list that's yours, that's one of the oldest
100.
ways to market digitally, anyway.
Yeah.
It's the oldest way and still the safest way for you to have that ownership and move forward.
Yes, absolutely. That email list is an asset that is worth investing in and worth maintaining.
Yeah, I love that so much. Um, okay, any other tactics you can think of that would help people grow online?
I think those are probably, if I was just to pick out some nuggets for today, that would be what I'd pick.
Perfect. Where do you
Yeah.
see the future going in this space?
I want to take a step back a little bit more broadly.
Mhm.
Think about things from it's a tactical skill from what's called the future hunters,
Mhm.
and it's called trend counter trend.
Okay.
So really, it's zooming out to see what are some of the bigger trends that are going on. And with every trend, there will end up being a counter trend or an outgrowth from that. And so when you want to get ahead and really like build yourself into the future rather than kind of chasing behind things that are happening,
Mhm.
you spot what are some of the potential counter trends and likely counter trends that will come from this. So, right now, people are overwhelmed with information,
Mhm.
right? And we have been for a little while. People's attention spans are very short, and there's just kind of this bombardment of notifications, and they're in a very highly reactive mode. So, we've already seen counter trends of more of a minimalistic relationship
Mhm.
with tech, right?
Yeah.
And with businesses. And so with that, I think that we're going to continue to see that where people are looking, they're going to be looking to kind of root and ground more. They're going to be looking for ways to filter out what they don't want to see and focus in on exactly what they do want to see when they want to see it. And so I think with that, there are some very simple things that we can do now in terms of like with your email list. Lean into segmentation and let people tell you what they want to hear about from you and when they want to hear about it from you, and serve that up. Be a good listener, let them feel seen and known by you as the business for that relationship. I do think people more and more are looking for things that will feel connective
Mhm.
and inspiring. So, one of the things with some of our clients, we're helping them to amass these groups, but are these groups interconnected with each other? And is there some kind of value that the brands that we're serving that they can provide to their audiences? And so we've had some of our customers lean into creating in-person events,
Mhm.
like meetups at these different places where they have these pools of digital customers,
Mhm.
right? And so that has been extremely successful and extremely valuable for them, to bring people together in live community. So I think being able to weave in elements of the real life, the live, the
Yeah.
relational, that's going to be something that we'll continue to see people want more and more of as well.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. I look at the amount of noise I have in the digital space, and I'm constantly looking for ways to like mass unsubscribe from emails or to filter the way that I look at social media. And I found a good way on TikTok recently where you can go and search hashtags and you can click and hold the hashtag and you can say uninterested. And then you don't get that stuff anymore. And I know like when I first got TikTok, anybody, if you haven't had TikTok before and you download it, it's just a bunch of teenage girls dancing and it's not like what I want to see. So when I first got it, I went
Right.
through and I would, a video came up, I would click and hold it and I would say not interested, not interested. And then the ones that came up, I would click the like button, and then it started feeding the stuff that I wanted. And now we have TikTok shop coming and it's like overwhelming and a lot of stuff. And so you can go do the hashtag TikTok shop. You can click and hold on it and you can say not interested in that hashtag. And so you really do need to start filtering to what you do want and recognizing what you don't want. And so I love the advice of going to your audience and finding out what they want and segment those emails so that you're getting
Yes.
them what they want. Otherwise, they're going to unsubscribe. If you're sending them a bunch of stuff and you're just like throwing the mud up on the wall hoping it sticks, they're going to unsubscribe
Hmm.
when there is this like key point that they came to you for. And if you can find that key point and continue to do that, you'll deliver value to them and they'll continue to enjoy that and eventually potentially become a client, or a customer. So I think you're spot on with that. I think that's very astute observation for the future. So winding up, I usually ask two different questions at the end of every podcast. And so the first one is if you were to go back to your younger self and give advice to your younger self, what would that be?
Enjoy the ride. Yeah, there's so much that even the best laid plans, they change.
Yeah.
And there's so much change. And so I think being able to embrace change and enjoy it and navigate it gracefully makes for a good life. I think when we're trying to fight against the change and control it, especially in a digital world where so much
Yeah.
is changing constantly, we may feel exhausted and behind and burnout. But if we're embracing that change and seeing it through an adventure mindset,
Mm,
I think it can be a lot more enjoyable.
that's powerful. See it through an adventure mindset. This life is an adventure. It sure is. So that's good advice. Okay, last question. Do you have any books, podcasts, or leaders that currently inspire you?
Oh, so many. I'm not very good at working out, and one of my ways that I motivate myself to work out is that I get to listen to a masterclass while I work out. And
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm a big fan of masterclass. I can tell you who I've been listening to recently.
Okay.
Let's see. I listened to one on Amy Poehler about improving, which was so relevant to life and business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, of course, Jay Shetty. I feel like
So good.
who's not a fan of Jay Shetty right now,
Yeah.
right? Um, but again, just that kind of groundedness, because for me, that's really important
Hmm.
to bring into business, because we spend so much time and resource working that we really do need to build it as an extension of our values and who we are and who we want to become. Other books, let's see, I've got my big stack over here. I typically have about 5 books on my nightstand any given night, and I'll have things like fiction, parenting, self-help, and usually a business book. So let's see. Um, a little bit older one, but one that I really enjoyed reading was Platform Revolution.
Mm,
Just diving into the understanding digital platforms and how they function was really fascinating to me.
nice. I'll have to look into that one. Very cool. Stacie, how can people get in touch with you if they want to?
Find me on Instagram. Just my personal handle is Stacie, Stacie Proctor, Proctor. You can find me there. Send me a message and an invitation through LinkedIn. But I'd love to connect. Love to hear people's stories. Um, love to make those connections.
Well, Stacie, I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on today. I've learned a lot. I'm going to have some follow-up questions actually, because I'm running a business and I need some help in your area. So I will for sure follow up with that, and hopefully other people see that as well and can get in touch with you. Thank you so much for all the value you've added today in the Digital Revolution podcast. I think it's gonna be a really good episode for a lot of business owners to listen to.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and creating this space and just even where you've talked about our kids, your own daughters and our kids for the future. I
Yeah,
think we are the ones who are shaping that space, like the business space for them. So what can we do to make it as positive and health promoting and impactful as possible for
yeah,
them?
absolutely, absolutely. Well,
Oh,
thank you again. Appreciate it.
yeah. Thanks, Eli.
You bet. And to all the listeners, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening to the episode today. Listen, I know how valuable an hour of your time can be, and for you to take that busy time out of your day and spend it with us, it really means a lot. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking and subscribing on whatever platform you're on. And don't forget to leave a comment. Tell us what you thought about the interview. Ask us questions. Let us know what other digital topics you'd like to hear about in the future. We're here to add value to your life and elevate your digital presence online. If you'd like some help doing that, reach out to me at fireusmarketing.com. See you on the next one.